Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together every week and we talk about a sci-fi movie. It is really quite that simple. We'll watch the film, we'll sit down, and then we'll work through it and discuss and analyze and possibly mock and laugh at. Although, I don't suspect that will be on today's menu, because this episode we are looking at Predator. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Needless to say, Predator is a classic, and it is one that we have both fondly grown up with. Therefore, you can expect exceeding praise throughout the majority of this. I will try and nitpick a little where I can, or see if there's anything to find fault in, but, you know, it's going to be a fairly positive one. And good too, because the last two episodes we did were the Tomorrow War and the Matrix Revolutions, so we could have used a win, which is why we chose this week to start the Predator franchise and work through it. Not back to back, but, you know, it'll maybe be a month or so, maybe 2 months, and then we'll do Predator 2, and then so on and so on, and we'll have done all four. Admittedly, we don't end in a happy place, necessarily, but we'll see. I've only seen the last one once, so maybe I'll feel differently this time.
As did I. I've only seen it once as well. But I made that decision for a reason.
True, but we all must suffer for our art.
Mm-hmm.
So, soon we will suffer. But today we rejoice. Today we rejoice in the most beef-slapping movie that has ever slapped. I don't know if I could give you the feeling of nostalgia, joy, and testosterone that I feel when Arnold says, "Dylan, you son of a bitch." They walk towards each other and their hands just smack together into a mid-air arm wrestle. Glorious.
Yeah, it's probably the most masculine shot ever made for a movie.
I like the idea, because I'm pretty sure this is after Rocky 4, right? This is post Rocky 4. Yeah. Or not even Rocky 4. So I'm thinking of Rocky 3. So Rocky 3, right? You got Rocky and Apollo, and there's a lot of like manliness where they're training together. You got Eye of the Tiger playing. They're there for each other, rooting. And I like the idea that Arnold, because Arnold, as you know, has a bit of a rivalry, or did back in the day, with Sylvester Stallone. I love the idea. He's like, no, I'm going to top this in one scene. I'm going to top this with just one scene, and he did it. He's like, "Dylan, you son of a bitch," and that's it. That's all you need, baby.
They had a bicep off. I heard that. Have you watched Pumping Iron, the documentary?
I have not. You've asked me this a few times, actually. No.
Okay. We'll add it to your list because it's definitely a must watch. But one of the great things about it is that you find out that Arnold's a bit of a punk. Like he's a bit of a bully, and he likes to like put other guys down so that it affects their self-esteem in a competitive way, so that, you know, when they're on stage they don't have the confidence that Arnold has. And one of the things he does in the production of this movie was that he had told like the costume designers and stuff and the tailors to tell Jesse Ventura that he had a 1 inch on his bicep over Arnold Schwarzenegger so that he would get that like boost of confidence that was not real. And it got to the point where he was bragging about it so much that he like lost money because he bet Arnold that his bicep was bigger. And of course it wasn't. Arnold's such a punk.
Yeah, I remember I don't know if I remember that part of it, but I remember hearing there was a lot of competitive stuff between Arnold and Jesse, the Body Ventura, when they were, but you know, the hotel and stuff, whatever they were shooting.
Both
all the rest
both
of
politicians
it.
eventually.
Eventually, yes. Bizarrely.
Both became governors, and Sonny something, he was going to run for governor also, but had to pull out because he couldn't raise enough money.
Sonny Landham.
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't even sure you were going with an actor in this movie. Like I was just like Sonny. I looked over and went, "Oh, there's an actor named that Sonny." Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The tracker.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So Predator, as if you don't know, it's a film where an alien predator lands in the jungle, and Arnold and his elite team are there for another reason. They're brought in to do this mission from the general, and there's a bit of a double cross going on. But ultimately, what it really is that it's a play of all things on the slasher movie, right? This is how I like to describe Predator. It's so a slasher movie typically is you have a killer of some kind, and you have a group of teenagers who are useless, who don't know what they're doing, and get their asses killed one by one until there's a final girl, and maybe she'll survive. That's a slasher movie. Predator takes an elite team of badasses who are the most badass of badasses that ever badassed. There is so much machismo.
Big ass motherfuckers. Oh, sorry, I can't say that word.
How dare you? Of course, Predator's the one where you start dropping F-bombs. Right?
I mean, there's a reason why.
Right. So they're the most elite of the elite. They're the best of the best. Led by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is the pinnacle of 80s action star. He is the best of the best. And the idea of this movie is you give them a slasher villain that is going to take down this team. And the only one who might stand a chance is the very best of us. The one who can carry a tree. The one.
Wrong movie.
Doesn't matter. That's Arnold. We're getting meta here. He can carry a tree. He can walk through a police station taking all the gunfire. He can teach a class of kindergartners. Whatever. But the point is that he's Arnold. And that's what this movie is. It's the deconstruction of the slasher movie, in a sense, through the idea of all this trained, very capable individuals being taken down one by one. That is Predator.
I've always sort of described it as a Jack Reacher-like action movie that gets invaded by a science fiction movie.
I've never seen a Jack Reacher film, but
Well, like Tom Clancy style action film.
is Jack Reacher Tom Clancy?
I actually don't know, but still that like style of film.
I don't get spy from this.
Well, they're trying to like sneak in, and they're elite force. They're kind of more military than spy.
Yeah, they're trying to sneak in though and sneak out unnoticed. They're sneaking in so they've got an advantage when they strike and kill everyone that's there.
Well, they are technically a search and rescue team.
They are a rescue team, and that's part of the trick of the other characters is that they've
But they are really good at blowing stuff up too.
they've sold them this story so that they'll do this job because they like to rescue people, and that's what they're there to do. But it turns out it's actually more not insidious, but basically Dylan Carl Weathers he has reasons to go in there, which are actually interestingly. I noticed a little thing watching it this time about his characters that obviously he deceives Arnold in doing this job, and
Are you going to compare him to Burke?
No,
Because he's not. He's kind of like Burke, but he's not like full Burke.
Well, no. What I was going to say is that he deceives Arnold. And what I think is interesting about his character watching it this time is that we find out that he sent in a team previously, right? He had a team in previously to try and take out this, I don't know, group of whatever they are. I don't even know. The movie doesn't even explain that much exactly who this group of
Enemies.
bad guys are. Yeah, they're enemies. They're enemies who are going to
They've
go
got
across.
hostages.
They're going to go across the border and they're going to have weapons, right? But anyway, so he sent in this team, and the team got eviscerated. Not by this group of bad guys. They got eviscerated by the Predator. And I love the idea that his opinion and attitude throughout the film, which is very much that he constantly doesn't believe that there's anything supernatural or alien or anything. Anytime someone says, "Oh, the jungle came alive and took him," or there was, like a movement in the trees or something. He keeps saying things like, there's one or two guys out there at best. He's constantly sort of dismissing it. He's constantly blaming an enemy. And I kind of noticed this time that part of that, it's not just that he's weakened and he's softened because he's, as Arnold points out at the start of the film, he's wearing a tie, right? He's been at a desk, so he's out of practice. And we see him kind of trip at one point, and Bill Duke steps in and goes, "If you ghost us again, mother effer, I'm going to, kill you right now, real quiet." And the idea that he used to be good at this. He used to just be as good as Arnold. They were, brothers in arms, comrades. But he's kind of slacking now a little bit. He's not used to doing this. He's only coming in now because of this idea of revenge, because he believes his previous team that he sent in got killed by this group of guys. But in fact, it was the Predator. So the idea that throughout the film, he keeps saying things like, "No, it's just one or two guys. We just have to get them," and so on. By the time he truly believes and he sees the Predator with his own eyes, it's actually at that point in the film where he's willing to go and help Bill Duke, who also, by this point in the film, wants revenge. But he's always had his revenge directed in the right direction. It's always been towards the Predator. And there's almost like a thing between them, because like I said there, Bill Duke's the one who threatens him when he trips early on in the film, and almost gives, the idea being if anyone's listening for them, they're going to know there's someone there because he's made a bit of a noise. And he has this confrontation with them. And all throughout the film, they're both about revenge, but he's directing it in the wrong place. It's a really nice little mini arc that he has, where once he realizes that no, there is this other thing, this is what actually killed his men, and now he lines up with Bill Duke, then he goes off to help him, and it's kind of like, oh, he's completed his little arc. And there's just that idea of him being so dismissive of everything because he just had it in his head the whole time, his hatred of these people because he thought they killed his men, and that kind of visceral sort of attitude he had towards it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say Predator's that complicated a film, because it isn't, but...
No, but there's a lot to love in it, and there's a lot to like you the more times you watch it.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I was comparing it to Burke because I sort of thought, like, Carl Weathers represents the more bureaucracy side of things, and they're just sort of anti-bureaucrat. And but he's not quite full Burke. Like, he's doing this for, bureaucrat reasons, but also because, his men are out there. He wants to find out what happened to his men. So he's not like trying to catch the Predator and like bring it back to base or to America or anything like that. So he's not full Burke. And so because of that, he's still likable. He's not unlikable. He's not like a villain or anything like that.
Yeah, which is why I wouldn't really compare him to Burke, to be honest. But let yourself out.
Well, I sure. Well, I was getting some like semi-Burke vibes.
He's got an ulterior motive, and he's kind of the one that's obviously is a little against the rest of them at points in the film. But he never is like, because like I said, once he realizes the Predator's real, he immediately wants to take it out, and he wants to like go. So I don't know. I never really got Burke from him. But
I did.
you're allowed to get Burke from him. I'm trying to imagine in Aliens though, Sigourney Weaver and Paul Reiser doing the.
She definitely calls him a son of a bitch, I think.
She probably does call him a son of a bitch. But and he has that futuristic tie on because they have the weird square ties in Aliens.
And the popped collar.
And the pop collar, yeah.
Of the future.
The future.
Future fashion.
So we should talk about the characters. We should talk about the Predator himself. Obviously, Arnold's great. He has to be the lead. He has to be the one that it all builds up to because he's the final girl of Predator.
Mm-hmm.
That is what he is. And yes, sure, it's the idea that the final girl is John Rambo, but played by Arnold. Which
he had to drop 30 pounds to be this movie. Can you imagine like being an action star and told that you have to cut muscle in order to be in the film?
Why? Why did he have to cut 30 pounds?
It was just too big. It was like too unbelievable or something. So he had to.
But he's a real person.
Yeah, but he is superhuman though.
Yeah, but it's just the weird thing. It's not realistic. It's like, but it is real.
I mean,
I'm real.
Know, he's so. He's so big in this movie too. I can't believe he had to cut muscle. 30 pounds of muscle.
Well, fair enough. But I mean, there's not even a whole lot to say about Arnold himself, really.
I think he's pretty good in it.
He's good. He's good. He's got the charisma that Arnold has. He has that kind of thing where once Billy's the tracker, of course. Once he starts like saying, "Oh, this makes no sense," like there's no track around all these dead bodies. It's like they're all firing in different directions and didn't know what they were hitting. Something's fishy here. And again, he's actually kind of the counterpoint in many ways to Dylan, and that Dylan immediately says, "Nah, it's a few guys, blah blah." He's reading this wrong, and Billy's very. He's very just like he's not even making wild accusations or saying if giving any theories. He's just stating the facts. There's no tracks. They were shooting in all these directions. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It doesn't make any sense. And Dutch, Arnold's character, just because we're probably just going to call him Arnold all the time, but Dutch, he's always very considerate of what he's hearing. He's always sort of thinking. He's always being a leader and all those things. He's smart enough to realize certain things throughout the movie and so on and so on. But yeah, you have the other cast members. Carl Weathers, of course, is very dependable. As far as the others go, Bill Duke, I always associate him with this and Commando, which is also Arnold. Yeah. And I've actually seen him in things recently, but he obviously, I associate these two movies with him like more than anything.
Isn't he like a classically trained actor?
I don't know.
I thought I heard that.
You may be right.
I did watch the commentary track from John McTiernan. And I didn't really get a whole lot out of it, honestly. But he did say that he was worried about Arnold's acting. So he had to fight to get Carl Weathers because he wanted to have someone that was good that Arnold can bounce off of, but also has somebody to look at and see a strong person that he can bounce off of that is also a great actor. So he would have someone to look up to on set. But apparently Carl Weathers was a lot of the budget because he's coming off of the Rocky films.
Yeah, and in the other cast you got Shane Black, of course, who also is a writer, although he didn't actually write this particular movie. The writers are Jim and John Thomas, who wrote this, and they also wrote Predator 2. But Shane Black is in this, and of course went on to be a writer and director himself, and eventually came back and directed the fourth one, which more on that a later date. We got Poncho, who and Billy. I think they're all pretty memorable. Obviously, Jesse Ventura has the big minigun, Old Painless. They all have kind of their own distinct roles on the team, and for as little as some of them get in some ways, given some of them have to die relatively early compared to the others. I don't think I've ever forgotten any of them. I don't think I've ever came back to this movie and goes, wait, I forgot about this one.
I know you did for a fact. I know you forgot about Poncho because we watched an episode of Babylon 5 where he was a guest star. And I said, that's a guy from Predator. And you said, I don't know who it could possibly be because Predator's a small cast.
That's different. That's me not recognizing his face. That's not me not remembering the character in the movie.
Okay.
So, I'll dispute that.
I'm sure. Okay.
Well, what I mean is when I go back and watch the movie again, there's never anyone that surprises me. There's never anyone who goes, oh, I forgot about this character.
It is a pretty small cast list.
Well, yeah,
that almost included Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that's a fair statement because tons of movies have small cast lists, and I don't remember all the characters. Where I come back to it, and I'll still have forgotten some of them. So I think
they don't all smile at you at the end of the film.
I think it's fair to praise us for that.
Sure.
They don't all smile. Arnold doesn't have a smile at the end. Arnold's just got a shot from the movie. It's like the rest of them all had smiles either from outtakes or because they asked them to do a smile just because they knew they were going to do this. But for whatever reason, there's no smile take for Arnold.
McTiernan said that it's because it was heavily inspired by Robert Altman movies.
Okay. The only thing I remember about that McTiernan commentary, other than that it was really dull and he's a really kind of dry speaker, is he talked about learning a film like he was a violinist in a concert at one point for his professor. He learned a film. He learned every shot so he could write down the entire shot list of a movie, which honestly feels a bit excessive, quite frankly. but you know, he made good movies, so I'm not going to dispute him.
He made some good movies, yeah.
He made some good movies. So the other people other than that, of course, is Anna, our one female character who they pick up at the camp, and is obviously reluctant at first, but as time goes on, becomes more and more scared because she's aware that there's something in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a stretch in the sense because, like, if I'm going to make a critique about the movie here, I will say that her at one point where she sort of like starts, when she eventually starts speaking English, because she's kind of like lying and pretending she doesn't speak English, when she eventually does start speaking some English, she tells like stories of like her people where sometimes they'd wander into the jungle and no one would come out, or so, you know, she has like this little story moment
when the weather would get hot. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think you need this little bit of like, oh, like people have a myth around here. Like, the predator landed at the start of the film. I guess this implies that predators have came to this jungle before, but I don't know. I could do without that.
I kind of wish that they didn't have that opening shot of the shuttle crashing onto the planet Earth. You know? Like, if it just was this action movie and then all of a sudden it became a science fiction slasher film.
I get it. I think the argument for it is that they don't want people to be too like turned off. If people are here just for an action movie and are going to be annoyed that it turns into something else, I think starting with the spaceship, you know, having the little launching thing go down to the planet, tells you right at the start, expect sci-fi stuff later. You know, it's just a way to tell the audience this is part of the movie, because I totally think there would be like guys who are like, I'm going to go see an Arnold action movie. I would get annoyed when, you know, the first time you see that, like the thermal vision POV, and it's like, wait, what is this? Like, what's going on here? Like, I kind of get it. I get why, but I also understand why you think it'd be cool if it was just, no, this is just an action. Oh wait, no, it's a slasher movie, and these guys are going to get taken out one. But well, because that's the great thing about that opening. Well, it's not the opening; it's like 25 minutes in the movie. But when they get to that camp.
Mm-hmm.
And you've teased the dead bodies at the helicopter from the previous squad that have been skinned, and it's this great effect and whatever. But they get to this camp. And the point of this scene, this sequence, is to show you that these guys are, in fact, the best of the best. And this is them working at their peak, where they do stealthily get into the camp, they set up these explosives, they take out everyone, they have no casualties. The worst thing that happens to them is that Jesse Ventura gets a little bit of a bullet wound on his arm, you know, which leads to the I ain't got time to bleed line. But, like, the whole point of this sequence is show this is them functioning as a team. This is what they do, and they are the best. And that's why they do kick everyone's ass. So good that they have
time. They even have time to quip. That's how good they are.
There's not actually that many quips. I know Arnold's got to stick around, but there's not that many others, I don't think.
I can't watch that scene anymore without thinking of Red Brown.
Stay here.
No, don't move.
Oh, is it don't move?
With a wink.
I'm actually a little scared how many times you've watched Robo War.
Oh, it's so good. Not as many times as I've watched Predator.
Of course, yes. Robo War is a cheap Italian knockoff starring Red Brown, which we actually did as a bonus episode for Patreon, so you can go check that out. It's only $1 per month to get access to the bonus episodes, so go and have a look. So, but that's what's so great, and I think the more, because I always loved this sequence as a kid, because it is just a fun action sequence with some good explosions.
I do love watching Arnold lift a truck full of explosives like a mom saving her child under a car.
What's so funny is I watched I watched Twins. I mean, I watched Predator 2, obviously, but I watched Twins, and he actually does the same thing in Twins for a different reason, where he picks up a car from the back. It's to like, shut off the alarm, because he says, I don't know if this is true, but I buy it when he says it, which is, if you pick up a vehicle to the right angle, over 45 degrees, it will shut off the alarms, because the alarm system will think it's getting towed, so it'll stop the alarm.
I don't know if that's true, but that's funny.
It sounds like bullshit, but I'm with Danny DeVito in this scene because I'm watching this man, with a
Lift a
car up.
Do you think Arnold puts it on his like resume? So for films, he's like, oh, here are my skills. Also, I can lift a car.
I mean, I have to ask the serious question here. Do you think he's not being assisted?
I like to think not.
You like to think not. I like to think not, but I mean, there's a whole other side of that car where there could be like a bar that's helping him.
He's doing the face though. He's doing the Arnold face.
I mean, honey, that's what we call acting.
Yeah, but we're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger here. He's not the greatest.
How dare you? He's a thespian. He's a thespian. Did you?
I do think he's good at this.
Did you not see him do?
I think this is kind of
Hamlet?
like peak Arnold.
Did you not see him do Hamlet in Last Action Hero? He's a
Oh, that's right.
he's a star. He's a star, darling, a star.
Oh,
Mm.
that's a great movie.
So,
Great movie.
but it really does serve this purpose because I think going back to like what this movie is, which is this team of ultimate badasses being taken down like they're victims in a slasher movie. The whole point of this scene is to prove to you that that's what
That
they
they're-
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
And it proves to the predator who's watching them, like, these are the guys I need to target. This is my game. now.
Absolutely, because the predator's hunting effectively for sport, possibly rite of passage. But I don't know if that's necessarily implied in this film. I think that's more something that we take from later,
From other, yeah.
movies and the comics and whatever else. But because I think I always again the later films and other Predator things kind of go against us a little bit. But I always like to think this is just a vacation. Well, this is just something the
Yeah.
Predator's doing for fun.
Yeah, he's gone to Africa to pay to shoot a
It's-
lion.
It's not Africa, but
No, I mean like a rich person goes
Okay,
to
I see
a
what you mean.
safari to shoot a beautiful endangered animal.
I see what you mean. Because I think that the reason why I've always felt that way is because what you just said there is he sees them take out this village and he goes, "No, this is a challenge. These
Yeah.
are proper sport." And as the movie goes on and he keeps taking more and more of them out, the idea that he ends up with Arnold, and when Arnold does enough to like land some blows and actually fight back without any weapons, that's when he sort of throws him down and like says, "All right then, moan then," and he takes off his mask because he sees Arnold as a genuine 1-to-1. Like this is a mano-a-mano fight, and he's like, "All right,
Yeah.
moan then, bitch." Like that's his reaction to it.
We don't see it, but do you think he does it with Billy also, and Billy's just not Arnold?
That's a good question.
Because he challenges him, and I think that's why Arnold does it again, but we don't actually see if he fights him.
Billy does challenge him, but the question is, does the Predator bother unmasking for Billy, or does he just kill him because he doesn't see him as the same level of threat? He's not proven himself. And-
Right.
And Billy is also doubtful because Billy, I almost call him doubtful, but Billy even says like 20 minutes before that we're all going to die. Like he's basically given up already. He believes that this hunter, whoever it is, whatever it is definitely going to win. Arnold, on the other hand, has the faith in himself. He has the faith in those biceps that he can do this. That
He
can
does
take
have the
on-
biggest biceps.
He does have the biggest biceps, yes. So that's wonderful. Let's talk about the Predator. Let's talk about the design. Stan Winston, the late great Stan Winston, and his wonderful work on this.
Yeah, man, don't you miss him in movies?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We talk so much about like creature design and monster design, and it's just anything post Stan Winston is like terrible. It just all looks the same. All looks like the same lizard people came up with this lizard thing.
Yeah, I mean, to give credit where credit is due. I mean, as much as he did design the Alien Queen, of course, Giger did do Alien, and that was obviously equally iconic. But Stan Winston, Terminator, Stan Winston, Predator, Stan Winston, numerous things.
Leviathan.
Surprisingly, that's maybe a lesser one in his film. They can't always be 5 stars, okay? Some of them are just going to be him. It's an off day. But anyway,
Yeah.
but there's some interesting trivia with this in that originally there was another design, which I think if you watch like the making of doc on the Blu-rays and DVDs or whatever, you can maybe see some sketches of what the original version was going to be, and they didn't like it. They kind of hated it, and Stan Winston was brought in to like do a proper job, and that's when he came up with this design. I love the mask. I think the mask is a stroke of, because he is a hunter. He is like someone who has tools, and I think I kind of loved that about the practicality of the Predator, that he does have, like, at one point when he does get injured after the old painless mowing down the jungle scene, he does have a wound, and we see him use like a little medical tool, and we see him, use various bits and bobs and gadgets, and he is an intelligent life form who has.
Yeah, I actually really like that scene a lot, because we get to see him, like, we get to see all these alien tools, but because they're being used, they're all designed for practical reasons. We know exactly what they are, and I think it's just like the suit and the tools and everything's really well designed.
Absolutely. And even as much as people don't think as fondly of Predator 2, I think Predator 2's additions to his arsenal, with the spear and the discs that he can throw, honestly felt like they fit with like what the Predator was to me. It never felt like it betrayed it.
A sport hunter, yeah.
So yeah, I think that. I think I love the idea of the Predator being, and I think this is why people love to pair it with Alien, and because it is so different. Because Alien's an animal. Alien's an animal that's just doing its basic instinct, right? Predator is an intelligent life form who is just as smart and maybe even smarter than we are. And
it's a professional cosmic hunter.
Yeah.
I went to go after the ultimate prey, which is the unkillable animal of the xenomorph.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the case of, like, taking Alien out of the equation, what is the most desirable prey? What is the one being that will give you a challenge?
The most dangerous game.
The most dangerous man on Earth is Arnold. He is the ultimate, like, challenge as far as human beings go. At this point in the 80s, he is the one to measure your success against in a physical one-on-one combat.
But in a trophy case, do you think you could tell Arnold's skull from anyone else's?
Probably not. Probably not. Skulls look pretty similar for the most part.
Too bad he's not doing like portraits of the people where he gets the skulls from.
I see it.
That would be the real trophy.
That was it. And the other big thing with the Predator is the camouflage, which honestly holds up pretty well. The effect that they use for this still, I mean, it's an optical effect. It's not CG. It is an optical trick, effectively.
But I do like that they're not just like pointing at the forest and it being empty and someone like wiggling a branch around and saying that it's there. I like that they gave us the effect where it's not 100% perfect. Camouflage.
It feels like tech. It feels like tech that's doing the best job it can, but it's still tech, and there's still limitations to it.
And it gives you a game. Like, can you spot the Predator in like a?
It's possible, yeah.
When it's panning, yeah.
Because later on, when Bill Duke and Carl Weathers are like hiding from it, and they're looking up, and he's like, "Can you see it?" And then finally, Dylan can see it. He's like, "Yeah, I see him." And he's in the tree. He's like, "Yeah, he was spottable. He wasn't impossible to spot, but it was hard. It was tough, for sure. But it doesn't feel like he's a ghost who can just appear wherever he wants. It's not that. There are rules to this. He's not setting off tripwires because he's using the trees. He's traveling up above, but it's that stuff's pretty cool. I think the practicality of Predator and everything. If anything, the only fault is that they made his claws so long that it looks like he's having trouble using some of his tools. And I'm like, maybe you should have shortened them a little bit just so that it didn't feel as silly. But
well, you never know. He might need to get in a hand-to-hand combat.
True. I mean, it'll be useful scratching. I mean, no complaints about that.
I like the way he uses his nails to like undo the mask, though.
Oh sure, yeah.
The claws. I mean,
I think that.
Like, he still uses them as tools.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the face underneath the mask. Now, I mean, I don't know what the general opinion in this and what you feel about this. I do think it looks better with the mask. I like that look better overall, but that's not to say that I don't love the four, like, corner mouth design that it's got.
The mandibles.
The one ugly mother effer. I mean, Tara's already swore, so I should probably just say it, but...
You're not going to bleep me out?
I'm probably going to forget, to be honest, so...
Yeah, that sounds right. Sorry about that. I just, I can't not think of RoboWar.
That's what Arnold's missing in this movie, the little crop top.
Don't think I didn't think of that scene. Although Arnold's entrance in the Chapo with like the red super tight shirt and the cigar. It's so Arnold.
Yeah.
It's not very practical to be smoking a cigar while you're trying to like sneak around in the jungle, I don't think, because I'm pretty sure that smoke will travel. Because they smoke outside of when they're like moving around also.
Yeah, I don't think they do it right outside the base though, so I think I don't know.
I thought I spotted them with somebody with a stogie out in the jungle. I thought put that thing out, man.
He does it. He does it after they've already dealt with the base though, so I don't think there's any enemy concerns. It's just like when they're planning their escape.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain.
In any case, I do like the design without the mask. I think the mask is cool because it is alien and it's super slick and it looks like a shield. It's very cool looking.
There's a cool thing with the pacing of how much we see of him, because see when we get that scene where he's fixing himself up, so it's kind of the first time we get a glimpse of any of them without the camouflage, right? You know, we've seen them in the camouflage, we've seen his POV, but we've not seen him yet, not really. And even in this scene,
blood is like super green, bright green.
Super green blood. But even in this scene, we don't get like a proper look at him completely. There's a sort of like wide shot at the end where you kind of see his mask. But for the most part, it's a close-up of the hands, it's a close-up of the tools, it's all the close-ups.
Yeah.
But we get this scene, it's actually right after the old painless scene, right? And it's when Bill Duke actually does get to see him in the camouflage. So I love the idea that we're always one step ahead of the cast, but we're never too far ahead. So I love the idea that when they get to the stage where they see what we've already seen, we then get to go ahead a little bit and we get to see a little bit more. And it's kind of the same thing. And obviously, both us and Arnold get to see him in full view at the same time when he decloaks in the water and all that. But
I love this, like the steam coming out of the mask as he's like taking it off. Like there's a different atmosphere inside. He's got to depressurize the mask.
Oh sure, yeah. And because we know it affects his vision when he takes the mask off, because he doesn't have the thermal view anymore.
Yeah, he's got like dog vision.
Yeah, which is really neat. Really neat.
Yeah.
Now, Parazine's it's one of the most iconic designs for a creature. I mean, I think it's fair to say the Xenomorph is probably a little more iconic, but
yeah, I kind of put them up in the same tier. I know the Xenomorph is definitely like it's better because ultimately the Predator is still like a man in a mask and a suit. I mean, so is the Xenomorph, but you know, he looks very humanoid.
Yeah.
But whereas the Xenomorph alien looks very alien and not of this world.
Yeah, as long as it's shot right. Obviously, if you see the behind the scene photos, it's very clear it's just a guy in a suit. But you know, as it's shot in the movie, at least in the original movie, yeah, you can see it looks truly alien and truly different. Yeah.
But I like the humanoid design of the Predator, because we can sort of see man in him. Like this is a version of us who is super advanced technology wise and still has to go out and hunt for sport to find some sort of excitement. Like it's still something you can see us in, which I kind of enjoy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If anything, the Predator's more like the Burke of this film. He's the rich asshole who's out doing it for his own gain.
That's right.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So no, I think all that pacing. Obviously, some of the more iconic scenes. Poncho's like the first one to. Is it Poncho? Or is it Shane Black?
It's Hawkins. He's the first to go.
So Shane Black.
Yeah.
Shane Black. So Shane Black goes first. That's right. And of course Jesse Ventura is up next, and that's obviously released to Bill Duke, mowing down the jungle, and that's the very famous scene where they all start firing their guns into the jungle. I have this is something I never even noticed this until this time I watched it. I have a slight nitpick with a line of dialogue here.
Yeah.
So Poncho, after they've mowed down the thing, and Arnold's like saying, you know, Sergeant, what did you see? And Belgick's got the ghost eyes, and he can't focus. He's just staring at his face, and all these static stuff out. Poncho eventually comes back into the scene and says, "I did a sweep, couldn't find anything. There's not a single footprint, no blood, no nothing." And I went, "Wait a minute, there is blood though." Anna just spotted some green blood on, and I suppose you could argue that he's
not looking for green blood.
Yeah, he's looking for red blood, but it did strike me as a bit odd that right after she notices this green blood on a leaf, he comes in and says, "I can't find it, and there's no blood." Which it's just a little bit silly, just a little bit.
I know it's not just green blood. It's like the reanimator fluid. It's
glowing
inside of a glow stick. Yeah,
it's glowing. You can
it's its own light source. What I did really like from the commentary is that McTiernan, like, he knew that American men liked looking at pictures of guns, like guns firing, like that's a masculine thing, and he wanted to like make fun of it. So he made this scene over the top on purpose. So he's like, "You guys like guns firing? Here's all of the guns firing to the point of taking down the forest." So it's meant to be sort of like mocking people who love that kind of stuff.
Which
and it gets to the point of ridiculous when you watch it. Like, it's funny and masculine or whatever. But
I think you can see it because the characters just like, because obviously, okay, Belgick sees the predator and he picks up the minigun and he just starts firing it. And then the others hear this, they all run in. They all just start firing in the same direction without knowing what they're trying to hit. They don't see anything.
Yeah. He mentions also that he does the same thing in
Die Hard. Yeah.
In Die Hard, but it's against glass. So both times he's like, "I'm going to do this, but I would never put like people on the other side of it. Like, I'm not trying to glorify it that way," even though he just had that whole murder scene in the village. But I thought that was an interesting comment. And what I also think is pretty funny after watching RoboWar, which I won't talk about the entire time, but the fact that RoboWar took the wrong lesson from that scene and said, "This is the coolest, most badass scene. We're going to do it 6 times," like, makes that commentary extra hilarious to me.
I can see it in the scene though. I don't think it's because Die Hard, especially when I reviewed that with Matt a couple of years ago, presumably around Christmas time, although I don't remember exactly if that's when it was. I think there's a lot of commentary in that movie. Not so much that's necessarily against guns, but more that the reason why John McClane is the hero of that movie is because he actually takes what he's doing seriously. He doesn't just think he's cool or a badass. The FBI agents, the cop, that's not Al who's like helping him, but like the captain who shows up and is like really against. He's like, "Oh, we're badass. We've got a tank. We're going to roll in there and shoot all the terrorists." Like, John McClane never treats it like he thinks he's cool. He never treats it like he's special or he's amazing. It's all these other characters. And Hans Gruber's kind of the same way. And the reason why Hans Gruber eventually loses in that movie is that he finally, at the very end, decides to let his ego get in the way, and he has to say yippee-ki-yay to him before he kills him. And that's what let John win, right? Otherwise, he might not have been able to. Hans might have won. And there's a nice little through line in that film about how all of these people who think they're cool because they're badasses with lots of guns are the ones that are destined to fail, if not die.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what makes, like, I mean, even though Die Hard is like the gold standard of action movies and stuff, I think that's what makes McTiernan such like a much better director than like Michael Bay. I mean, that's kind of low-hanging fruit, or even like Zack Snyder, who's just like, we just want things to look cool. Like, this is cool, so we're going to do it. But they're not seeing the, like the subtext of what they're actually trying to say in these action movies, these McTiernan films.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why he's a better director than those. I mean, you picked
sure. I have other things to say too.
You picked a lot of bottom of the barrel examples for that comparison.
Sure, yeah, low hanging fruit. But I was just trying to make the point.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but he is definitely a much better director. Like, I love the way this movie looks, especially like when you watch a lot of. I think I've brought this up before, but like when you watch low budget stuff, a lot of it's shot in like forest, or
because
it's supposed to be a jungle, but yeah, you could shoot in the forest for free. So shoot in a park somewhere or shoot in a warehouse, right? So and they look bad because the light's coming through, so you have shadow and light and through all the leaves, but you don't want like your people to look too dark or too oversaturated. And this cast too is so diverse. Like Bill Duke is dark, so if you get the lighting wrong, he's gonna like disappear. He looks great in this movie. Like all the lighting looks so good. Some of the shots are really effective.
I don't think I've ever got the intensity off a man more than Bill Duke. Shaving with no shaving cream. He's just got a razor going down the side of his face and he's sweating so much. And then blood starts to... It's like he gets stuck on a spot. Like he's got like a spot in his skin and he gets stuck on it. And he just sort of presses down until it snaps. And then he's just like, oh, I guess that one's done.
Seriously, like barely flinches.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I think Bill Duke is probably my second favorite in this film. Like it's hard to top Arnold.
Bill Duke is great in this. See the scene where he gets the sad. So after Jesse Ventura dies, right? And he gets like, because we see him get killed with the Predator's laser gun, right? The cannon, which just goes through his chest, and he gets the sad scene with the sad sort of like soldier down music where he sort of like, puts his canteen on Jesse and that. But we get the scene of him later that night when he's on watch and he's just looking up at the moon and he's just like sort of talking to himself. But it's like he's talking to Jesse Ventura about old stories where they came out on top and they were badasses and they were, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, he does so much with his character.
He's really good. Like, I think you forget that him and Jesse Ventura in this movie only have like 2 scenes together before Jesse Ventura dies.
Right. And like Jesse Ventura's opening is like he spits on the shoes of Carl Weathers. So he's got like this cowboy look. He's making these jokes. He kind of like he's obviously bigoted, and he kind of, when he does that, you kind of think, oh, he's like a racist too. But then like he has this relationship with Bill Duke to the point where like Bill Duke's going to get revenge for his fallen brethren.
I think,
you're like, oh no, that wasn't about race. That was about him being a bureaucrat.
Yeah, that was him being the office boy and not the
right.
That was him. Or even that.
But in the intro, you're like, you don't know yet.
But it's not even just that. I think, maybe less the office guy. It's more just that he's not one of their team. Like they're clearly a team who function together, and he's the outsider. This guy's come in and he's
still spit on a man's shoes.
They're jumping in the jungle. They're going to be getting like covered in all sorts of shit as soon as they land.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean everything. Like just the harsh red lighting of that introduction of all those characters. I mean, obviously we see them briefly before in the opening, but they're just kind of in the background and they're coming out in silhouette. And of course it builds to Arnold. Arnold's last to get off the helicopter, and it's this kind of dramatic.
He's got to finish his stogie first.
Got to start. You mean? Oh
yeah, that's right. Actually, in the commentary, I did hear that the only one of the few like CGI moments is that he had to that it wouldn't actually light the cigar because it was too windy or something. So they had to add a red glow to the cigar. So that's CGI.
Is it actually CG?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what McTiernan said.
Okay.
The red glow of the cigar because they couldn't light it.
Okay, that's a bit of that.
I mean, it's a slasher film, right? That's what you're saying.
It kind of, yeah, it very much is a slasher movie in a lot of ways. So what do we have? We have
modes of death, the 3-pointed targeting system.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the same thing that kills Jesse Ventura. It's just that it comes from behind, so we don't get to see the lasers first.
Probably.
Yeah. We also obviously get the claw thing up through someone. We get just sort of blood splatter. We get the chest explosion. We get a head explosion later on in the film, which is really nice. My favorite.
We get an arm that's shut off.
We do get the arm shut off.
While the gun's still firing.
That said, you can, if you pay close attention, catch a glimpse of the real arm kind of snuck under the, I mean, yeah. I'm not saying they should have cut off Carl Weathers' arm for the sake of the film. I'm just saying, you can get a sneak peek of it if you're looking for it.
Still, I enjoy his slow motion scream and then the gun still firing as it's hitting the ground with the arm severed.
I intentionally like how he spins around in a way that's like it's like the counter way to where the camera's moving. so that we actually spin past the side that has no arm as he turns around. There's a nice like fluid motion to like both of them doing the opposite. It gives it like a sort of vibe that I really quite like. There's a momentum to the shot, which I really like. My favorite practical effect in the whole thing though is after I think it's after he's stolen Jesse Ventura's body, because he steals that in the middle of the night. Or maybe it's someone he's killed later, but we see him rip out the spine and skull of one of them up in the tree, and it's just you don't see like you don't see like a close up of the actual ripping out, but just like seeing like, from a distance the ripping out of and then the spine and the skull, and then the close up of the skull with all the blood sort of dripping off of it, and then he just sprays it with some shit. I don't know, it just looked really great.
It's got like an encapsulate, something to keep it from getting too moldy.
Yeah. No, it's nice. So it's a really nice effect.
Yeah, it's almost like a shadow puppet when you see the head and or the skull and the spinal cord ripped out.
Yeah, and then obviously, I mean that's pretty much all the deaths. Well, it's the Predator related deaths. Obviously, there's a lot of killing in the big action scene early on in the film, which has grenades, knives, machine guns. Jesse Ventura mowing people down.
The female character in this is not really necessary, which I guess they felt the need to throw in a female just so it wasn't too gay. The movie.
Well, no, no, she serves a purpose. She does serve a purpose, and
but she doesn't really need to be there. She's there for like some of the exposition of like the history or the lore of this thing that hunts them in the jungle.
Well, no, I already said we don't need that, and I think that's a mistake to have that. The one thing she is there for, though, that I think is valid, is the idea of learning that the Predator is only going after them because they have weapons. The idea that the Predator won't attack her because she's just an innocent person. That is a really interesting plot point that I think the film does benefit from, and you need someone there to be that. Otherwise, like, there's no one to do it with. So...
Yeah.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, I think inherently we associate like a woman being with all these big machismo guys as being the one who is innocent, who isn't the fighter, who is not necessarily helpless. I mean, she seems quite feisty. She seems like she's always trying to like run away and like fight back and stuff. But she definitely adds that purpose, or has that purpose in the movie, and I think that's fine. If I have critiques, it's the backstory that she comes up with, talking about the stories of this place and people not returning from the jungle. And also, I'd say the pacing takes a slight hit after the action sequence, when they're kind of like looking around before the deaths really start kicking in. Maybe up until probably the old painless scene, when the jungle gets shot down. So maybe that little section of the film there is maybe just a touch, I'll say slow, but I think what I mean more is that maybe a little aimless, because the characters are just kind of trying to like, okay, we're trying to leave, where are we going? There's not much momentum in the premise yet, because the Predator's not really made his presence felt. But once that kicks in is when it really starts to feel like there's a build of something.
Yeah, I don't think we really know where they're going after anyway. Like, there's no sense of like direction or this where they are. This like, are they trying to get to a beach, or they're trying to get to some rendezvous point? Doesn't really. I don't think they really bring it up. It's just that's done, and now we just walk through the jungle.
Well, no, they do kind of bring it up. They say they're going to where the chopper's going to come and get them. They're getting to the chopper.
To the chopper.
Right? That's effectively what it is. But they have to get to the right place and get out to the, wherever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't need like an Indiana Jones map with like a red line of where they're traveling to that day, but like, be nice to have some sort of idea of what this area looked like, of their direction.
Sure, that's fair. So, but obviously they start dying, and once a few of them have been killed, once like they've seen, I think it's after Poncho dies and after Ventura's body's taken, that Arnold's like, look, if we try and just get to where the chopper is, we're going to die. We have to make a stand. We have to actually set a trap, and we have to try and fight it. And of course, everything fails because none of their traps are accounting for, height.
Invisibility?
Well, no, for the fact that he's using the trees. That he's up in the trees, moving around. Well, actually, maybe they are. Because does he realize that after the body's taken?
Well, after they mow down the forest and they don't find anything, I think doesn't the girl say something about how it was in the trees?
Oh no, it's later than that. It's because because she's not talking yet at that point to them. Other than just saying the jungle came alive and took him. It's later on. I think it's after Jesse the Venture's body's taken, and they're trying to figure out how it got past the trip wires. And I think it's around then that they realize, oh, it must be using the trees. And I think that maybe that's when she chimes in, because she's starting to, because she has that moment in the middle of the night where they all get distracted with the pig, and she doesn't run away, and they're like, why didn't she try to run? And Arnold's just like, look at her, she's terrified. Like she's staying with us because she believes that she needs the protection.
Yeah, she feels safe. Something more dangerous than us out there.
Yeah,
if you can believe it.
And yeah, sure enough. Yeah, poor Poncho, because Poncho gets hurt with the big tree log, that's like the counterweight to the trap, or maybe it's the trap itself, but it hits him.
Yeah.
And he ends up getting carried for a while. He's like, I can make it, and then
yeah, it's like his whole rib cage is crushed or something. Yeah, he got hit hard. I do like how people get hurt in this movie. Things, they don't just bounce right back after getting hit by a tree like in other action films. It's damaging, and he is near death.
Oh, for sure. It doesn't last very long. Once he's in that state.
No, but it is nice to know that people aren't only killable with a headshot or or something. It's just a trope in action films. So it's if Arnold got hit by the tree, he would have recovered somehow, and it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Well, Arnold does go through a lot, obviously, in the back chunk of the film.
I do like also in the scene though that we get to see the net come up with the invisible predator in it. I thought that was a decent effect, and it's like, oh yeah, now everyone knows he's invincible.
Yeah, but obviously once this happens, once the predator the predator wipes out a lot of the team very quickly, where it kind of escalates, and because I think that's one of the best things about this film is the momentum, and that not only is it directed very well, not only do all the characters have memorable little quirks, a couple of them have little arcs, Bill Duke and Carl Weathers in particular, but you have this idea that the kills start slowly with the main team, but then they ramp up, and a lot of them die very quickly for Arnold to be left on his own, where he ends up, running away and falling down the waterfall. Leading, of course, to the the mud realization that he can't see him if he's covered himself in mud. And we get our money shots. We get the Predator in full vision. He looks great. Arnold's shitting himself, and he's and it's good visual storytelling as well, because it's this sort of thing where, okay, you can't see him, and Arnold sort of looks at the mud in his hand, and he's like, oh, he doesn't say anything really. He just looks at it. It's all visual, and I think at this point in the movie, because it's down to just the two of them, him speaking to himself, I think, would have not ruined the rest of the film, but it would have hurt it. But because it just lets you go about his business, where he starts setting traps and he starts preparing and he starts saying, no, I'm going to John Rambo this. I'm going to take this asshole on one-on-one. And it's rules.
Yeah.
What I always talk about when less sci-fi and more horror, but I talk about rules. I talk about an enemy that can be defeated if you understand the rules and you obey them and you use them to your advantage. How can you work around them? And that's what Arnold does.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you think it's odd that he starts a fire, though? While he's doing his work and stuff? It's like, put that thing out, Arnold. You already know now that he can see heat. Because he's using it. It's on while he's making the traps and stuff, and it wasn't until he uses it to light the torch and gives his great Tarzan burst.
Yeah, I guess. It's a little fire though.
I guess
it's a little fire. It's
I don't know. It seems risky.
If he's still sitting there covered in mud, then the Predator will just will shoot the fire. And Arnold will have a chance to hide.
True.
I don't know. Would you?
I do love all the traps, though. All the booby traps.
Yeah. I kind of love that the final trap, after, because obviously there's some fun stuff where he's sort of like hugging the tree or he's under the tree, and there's a lot of the tense, the slow suspense of like, will he find him, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I love that the final trap that he eventually nails him with, it's not the trap as it's intended. Because, that's the famous moment where he's like, I'm right here, kill me, I'm here, I'm right here, kill me. Do it
Kill me.
now.
Do it.
But the Predator's smart enough to realize it's a trap, and he walks
Yeah.
around. And I love that Arnold has to think on his feet and realizes that he's under the counterweight. So the trap is still used, but it's used in not the way that it was intended. And that's what ultimately wins the fight. But it's he had to outsmart him. He couldn't outbrawn him, because even as big as Arnold is, this Predator's bigger.
Yeah. He's like 7'6" or something crazy.
Yeah. Well, the
Wait,
actor.
I think he's 7'2.5", but I'm pretty sure he's got some lift on those shoes, on those boots.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, of course, why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah.
You can get extra few inches out of Kevin Peter Hall.
Who makes an appearance as the pilot at the end of the film?
Yeah, and he plays the Predator in Predator 2. Yeah, he did that before.
Oh, really?
Before he died. Yeah, he's
Yeah. He did die super young.
yeah. It's a shame, but he is the Predator in Predator 2, so you got to do it again, and yeah, I love it when the Predator sets off his explosion. It's like it's got a mushroom cloud. It's like actually like a nuke. Well, it's not
Yeah.
really, because if it was a real nuke, then Arnold shouldn't be alive.
It's alien nuke.
It's a mini alien nuke. Very, very many. Very many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it too. It's like a fireball that starts slowly building up in the air before it actually turns into a mushroom cloud.
I think what I love about this is that the Predator, because he's like studying the language a little bit, because he hears the jokes early on, he hears Billy laughing, and he mimics Billy laughing later on. He sort of tries to like say it himself back, but it sounds a little distorted.
Yeah.
I love that he has this laugh as he's setting off the bomb, and it gives him just enough character where he knows he's lost,
Yeah.
but he's going to take out Arnold with him, and he's laughing about it. He's getting that point across, and he wants Arnold to know that he's happy about it.
Yeah.
There's just enough of a character that's presented in him choosing to do that. And even before, the idea that he does decide to take off his armor, take off his weapons, and fight Arnold one-on-one, because he's finally met someone who he sees as a genuine challenger. And
Yeah.
he still expects to win, obviously, but he's like, no, this is a worthy opponent, so I'm going to, which is the one thing that really separates it from a slasher movie, because a slasher at the end of a slasher movie doesn't get to the final girl and goes, you know what? She's a good fighter. I am going to put down my knife and I'm going to take her on one-on-one.
It is the same idea where you have to outsmart him, though.
Yeah. I mean, that principle's
The
still
final
there.
girl always has to outsmart the villain.
Yeah, but this is the machismo version of it, where the villain has respect for that, and Arnold has that. So it's like, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We're going to fight the ultimate predator. I think that simple subversion of what it is. You don't really think of it as a slasher movie. You think of it as an action movie and a sci-fi movie and an alien movie, but it is very much a slasher movie in how it's presented. Once you get past the introduction to, it's almost like if in a slasher movie you had to have a scene early on that established that they're all a bunch of dumb teenagers, and I guess some do in a way, but like I don't know how you do that. Like show them all at a party or something, and like being really bad at Trivial Pursuit. I don't know, but
Yeah. I don't know. I've always sort of thought of Predator as a horror film.
it kind of is, yeah. And in some ways, I mean, I always put it in the sci-fi category first, but it is all of the above.
Like action, horror, sci-fi. Yeah. I've always sort of thought of it as a more of a horror film. But same with the first Alien. I've thought of that as more of a horror film too. Because it has the horror tropes more than it does science fiction.
I wouldn't say more than that. I'd say it's equally sci-fi and horror, the first Alien.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I suppose my, view has changed throughout the years, but sort of like traditionally, I've always thought of these as both horror films.
I never thought of this one as horror first. Horror's always third in the list on this one. I've always thought of this
Yeah.
as sci-fi first, action second, and
Well, when you got
Horror
Quippy
third.
Arnold, it's hard to think of it as horror, I guess.
yeah, I mean,
But it does. I mean, I think I've always seen it as a slasher movie, also.
But I mean, you said it yourself. Like, if it wasn't for the little scene at the start, this is an action movie up until it's
Mhm.
not. Up
Yeah.
until this, and I think that's the other reason why I think this works so well is because it does present itself as just a straight action movie, and then the unknown, this alien entity invades the
Mhm.
film, and
Makes
presents
it a
them
better
with,
movie.
presents them with this challenge that they have never faced before, something that they've never been able to come up against before.
Mhm.
And that's kind of part of the wonders of it. It's the wonders of Predator.
Yeah. Very good film. We haven't talked about the music yet, though, but the music is amazing.
This is pretty good, yeah. It's very distinct. It's very Alan Silvestri, and
Hmm.
I wouldn't say his best work because the dude did do the Back to the Future trilogy, which is like, you know, best of all time levels. Come on,
It's up there.
this is extremely good. It is. There's not a lot of Alan Silvestri scores that are distinct in my mind, other than Back to the Future and Predator. But Predator is very distinct. I can't not go dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it is. I think it's up there definitely with his best. And so much about a soundtrack or a score will like make or break a movie, like without you even really realizing it. But like this, getting someone like Silvestri to like give the film more of an atmosphere and tension that it needs to be able to cross the three different genres that the movie is I think impressive.
Mm. And one of the key moments of the music, I mentioned the sad kind of like the fallen soldier theme that plays as Bill Duke saying goodbye to his friend.
Mm-hmm.
That plays again at the end when the helicopter comes and Anna's on there with the general and the smoke clears and Arnold's standing there kind of triumphant. It's not a happy moment, that music's playing and he's sad and it sort of continues playing as he's on the helicopter. And if the first time it plays it's the loss of a friend, at the end this is him finally reflecting on the idea that he has lost all of his team. And
Yeah.
it was a sad ending. It's a sad ending where he is the last one standing. And there is a somber quality, even though he survived, there's a somber quality to the ending where, and I think because of all the interactions he has with the Predator in that last fight, he's kind of realized that this Predator in many ways is another world's version of him or them, his team. Like it's another one of, if this
Yeah.
Predator was born a human on Earth, he might have been on his team. Like this might have
Sure.
been, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they just take out all those, we assume bad people in the village that they all murder and quip about like it's no big deal to take life. And then
I mean,
somebody comes in and starts taking theirs.
what do you mean you assume? You see them just execute two hostages.
We don't really know that much about them, like who they are or what their goals are.
Like, sure, but there's enough of a viciousness to them that you at least get the sense
Sure,
that they're not
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I guess. Who knows? Maybe that hostage was actually like a terrible person.
Okay, Tara's full death penalty then.
No, of course I'm not. What if they shot a Nazi? What if that was a Nazi they had?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it wasn't.
But if it was, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much Predator. I mean, there's so many little details. I want to mention the quality of the image here. I know this is maybe a bit technical, but Predator's had a bit of a weird history on home video. Basically, when the first Blu-ray came out, it was pretty grainy and rough because Predator had always had kind of this very grainy look to it, and the print wasn't that great. It was a bit scratchy and whatnot. But Fox took this to heart so much that they did a second Blu-ray, and they digital noise reduced the whole thing, and everyone looked like a wax figure. There was no grain, there was no nothing. They smoothed out everything, and
Oh no,
that's not a good
we gotta
thing.
get those pores. I mean, look how oily they are. Clearly, we have to see the pores.
It looked terrible, and so I actually luckily had the first Blu-ray because as much as the print was a little rough, because it wasn't like butchered with digital, trickery. It still looked more natural. It still was more pleasing to watch than the later Blu-ray. So I actually watched this in 4K and luckily when they did the 4K print for the new 4K versions, they didn't butcher it again. They gave a genuine 4K version. So it's the best it's ever looked. It looked very nice when I watched it yesterday. It's very good. That said though, I will say the opening couple of shots, like on the helicopter, it's not until they get inside the little hut when they're having their meeting and we get the son of a bitch scene, where it starts to look really great. The first sort of scene when they're outside, just coming from the helicopter, is very grainy. Like whatever they were doing at the time to shoot that, I don't know if it was the film stock, I don't know if it was the time of day and the lighting conditions, but it is a very grainy little couple of shots, and so, but know that it does actually smooth out quite a bit once you get inside the next scene. Shall we rate Predator?
Yes.
What would you like to rate Predator, Tara?
I want to tell a story first. So,
okay.
So I was once dating somebody who had never seen Predator because they didn't like scary movies. It's the first red flag. But I was super excited to like show him Predator for the first time. Like it's rare to show an adult a movie that you love that's been around forever. And so I put the movie on, and we're like maybe 20 minutes into it, and I had this like realization that, well, what if he doesn't like it? Like, there's no scenario in my mind where I can meet someone who said I hate Predator. But like there's a chance, right? I don't know if this guy's gonna like it or not, and I realized that like this is my deal breaker movie. Like I cannot be with somebody who doesn't like Predator, and obviously I love Predator. But I'm not going to give it the 10. I'm going to give it the 9.5.
Oh, okay. How reserved of you.
Thank you. But I do think it's near perfect. And yeah, it's still my deal breaker film. If you don't like Predator, there's no chance. It's never going to work.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, I am going to be slightly more reserved and go with a straight 9 out of 10. It is an excellent film that deserves its place. It is. I think it's remarkably well directed. I think most people write it off as it's just a dumb Arnold movie where he's in the jungle and there's a monster. But
so much more.
But the movie is so strongly directed. The pacing, the momentum. Other than that one blip after the big action scene for a little bit, but it's so. The way it plays upon the tropes, the way it clashes multiple genres, because it really is. It's an Arnold movie meets a slasher movie. But the slasher is big enough, tough enough, and even more like superhuman than Arnold, and that's the point. It's almost like a meta thing in a weird way, and that makes it fascinating. And the fact that it's pulled off, where I often say this when it comes to some of the best movies that have subjects like this, where no, this director didn't treat it like he was making some B movie. Even though technically in premise it kind of is a B movie, the director treated this like it was a serious film that he cared about, that he was making, and he didn't hold back. He didn't like phone anything in. He tried to make a genuinely great movie where the characters worked, and the characters are all memorable, and yeah, it's
I think it's his first feature film too,
which makes it more impressive if anything.
Yeah.
So I can't really fault that. I mean, John McTiernan.
Also, why he wanted to give it his all.
I mean, John McTiernan.
Making a serious movie, dang it.
I mean, John McTiernan. He, of course, did Die Hard, which is largely regarded as one of the pinnacle of action movies. And then you've got Predator, and nothing really comes close to those two. But he did also do Die Hard with a Vengeance. He did do Last Action Hero, which I enjoy. I don't want to talk about the Rollerball remake because clearly, like a lot of directors, he'd lost it by the time the 2000s came around, and that's okay. We can accept that. And
happens to the best of them.
Yes. Or even after Die Hard with a Vengeance, he has a good like decade in him, and then it kind of goes after that, unfortunately.
And then he goes to jail.
Yes. What's interesting is he actually has something listed as in pre-production, which is very notable given that his last film before that was Basic in 2003. So if this thing actually
20 years later,
if this thing actually comes out, which might actually be literally 20 years later. If,
Does it look legit?
if you're lucky. Let's click on it. It's got a really foreign looking name though. It might. Oh, Uma Thurman's in it.
Uma.
Uma. Seems like it's early days. It is listed as action sci-fi. Oh, what's the description here? A group of rebels set out to kill the oligarchs. Is that made up word?
Oligarchies?
Oligarchs and military thugs who terrorize a war-torn planet in the remote Tau Ceti solar system. Which actually, the title makes more sense now. The title is Tau Ceti 4.
Hmm.
I thought it was foreign, but it's the name of a star cluster apparently.
Okay.
So fair enough. He's doing a sci-fi action movie
Hey,
with Uma Thurman.
I hope it's real.
I hope it happens and exists,
Yeah,
and then
I'm curious.
his return,
What does prison do to a director?
his glorious return to film. He's 70 this year. He turned 70 earlier this year. So
Hey, we're not ageist here.
well, that's not my point. My point is that he's not as old as I thought. I'm saying that he's younger than I thought he was. So
Mhm.
directors still make stuff in their 70s.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll see. I mean, his last couple of films weren't that good, but they were also 20 years ago. So I mean, he's had time to
I've
recuperate.
never seen Rollerball.
It's not. I mean, I'm talking
I'll
about
take your word for it.
I'm talking about the 2002 version here. I'm not talking about the James Caan one, but the 2002 one. Whoever thought Chris Klein was going to be a star in Hollywood needs to never work in Hollywood again, quite frankly. All right, well there you go. That's Predator.
Very, very good. What are we doing next?
Oh, I don't know. So, how about in the meantime, you give them a key phrase to say in the comments if they made it this far.
If you made it this far, type the word choppa. It's kind of obvious, but
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
get to the choppa.
Get to the chopper.
It's probably the most quoted line from the movie.
That's probably true. Next up is the last vote winner from Patreon, which is the 50s sci-fi movie Them.
Ooh.
So look forward to that.
Have you ever seen it?
So cool.
Have you ever seen it?
Honestly, I can't remember. I might have.
I watched it on TV when I was a kid, but I don't really remember very much of it.
I might have
Other
seen
than
it.
I think it takes a while before you see ants, but
Yeah. Well, Tara's going to post for the thumbnail, so move that mic out of the way, and I can't wait to see what this one's going to be.
little like the thing on my shoulder. the gun.
Tell me again when the mic's actually in your mouth.
Can you put the little like the predator gun over my shoulder?
Oh, I can maybe pull that off. Sure. I can maybe pull that off.
Somehow have 3 red dots on your forehead.
What the
Make it
hell?
make sense.
What's the physics of this?
I'll be.
Hold on. Angle the other way so that the shoulder that's facing me or on my side it can be used as the one where it's this.
But that's not my good side. Just flip me.
This is taking too long. This is meant to be like a 3-second segment on the show. Tara's like, these episodes should be a little bit shorter, and then she sits and dilly dallies during the posing portion. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, pause.
Good luck.
I don't think I can use one where you're looking like complete profile shot like that.
Well, I'm sure you can make it work.
No, because the gun's going to cover your face.
And put it on the other shoulder.
Then you'll be able to see it.
Well, so long as you have the laser with the red dots.
Okay, all right. I'll try and do something with it. I feel like there's no respect here for how difficult it is to actually Photoshop some of this shit. But I'll see what I can do.
I have no idea. I don't hate the idea of giving you more work though.
Luckily, before you spun, there was like a good 30 seconds of footage of you with no mic in front of you, so I could basically just take any of that I want to, if I feel like it's too
Fine.
difficult.
Whatever.
Well, you're being difficult, okay? You're being a diva right now.
Okay.
Tantrum Tara.
Oh, come on.
Tantrum Tara. That's your nickname. All right, okay. Tara, after I obviously thank our Patreon producers, you're going to tell them about Patreon. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They are our Patreon producers for the month of July. Tara, why don't you fill them in about the rest of the Patreon details?
Yeah, if you are interested in getting more reviews like RoboWar, then check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MouthFuzzTV, and if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to our back catalog of science fiction movies, some good ones, some not so good ones, but all worth listening to. And you get a back catalog of horror movies as well, which is not done by me, but that's okay. Just more goodies. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 1 day early, and some other shows you get a whole week early, and you get to vote on what we watch. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I'm good.
You're all right. All right, that has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining us once again. We do always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction films in computer at Salsa.
Don't move.